Hello guys, and welcome back to Strategic Command World War II, World at War with our Allied playthrough. In the last episode, we took care of, I believe, the UK and China in this turn. Well, except for one thing. I know I meant to move this DEI sub out of here, so I'm gonna go do that right now while I remember. I always manage to forget something. The Allies have a lot of stuff to control. It's really easy to miss a thing or two while you're going around. But all we have remaining for this turn is the Soviets. And so the winter's done, the winter of 1942. The Germans never even pushed in far enough, I guess, to trigger the Russian winter event. They probably have to pass the Dnieper and other things to even trigger it. So at the very least, the winter slowed them down, but it didn't really do anything amazing for us. Our front line is under brutal assault. Odessa finally getting its morale basically destroyed. And this corps at Cherkasy and Kiev, the army there, are getting messed up now. Ukraine is in this interesting place where pretty much the entire country is green. There's no mud here. There's some rain, but there's no mud yet. There'll probably be mud next turn, on the Axis turn, if it's raining here, theoretically. I don't know how the weather works in this game. But this is perfect. Because now that the winter's passed, and now that I got so many units to the front, I actually perfectly timed it. I was intending to go on an offensive at the end of the winter. I think this is the first turn of my turn that the winter is over. We're in spring now. The snow is gone, and even though there's mud, our northern offensive is ready. It's moved forward into the Baltics from its previous location up here, just outside the Baltics. And even in the south here, we can pull back the defenders and attack. What did we even lose in the defense? We lost maybe an army or a corps here and here. And then the actual border defenders. We saved the army that was at Minsk. We lost Minsk. I gave that up intentionally. This was amazing, in my opinion. This was perfectly set up. And now we have German cavalry charging us in the Baltics. There's some armies here, but it's mostly German cavalry. There's a corps here, a Hungarian army. This German army is worth something, but even with infantry upgrades, we would blast through the cavalry with the armies we have on the front and all these tanks. There's a reason I put all the mechanized and tanks and motorized, blah, 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 all this shit on the edges where it can hopefully do a lot of damage. We have less of that in the south, but we have some armies here to make up for it. Looks like the Kiev fighters at Melitopol were rather messed up while running escort missions last turn. So let's go ahead and reinforce them back up to strength. I don't know if it's wise to do any bombing at all when as Russia here, we don't quite have any good opportunity to do it. Our values are not very good. We don't have any ground attack weapons or anything. Even with these tactical bombers, let's see here. Attack bombers. What's your range? 5 on these? I'll put you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh, okay. Well, what I can do, honestly, with the medium bombers, which have better range, I think, yeah, 6. Honestly, I might want the medium bombers north, because I could raid the enemy convoys from Sweden with it, theoretically. Maybe that's not the best idea. Can Russia get maritime bombers? Oh, they can. They can get one. They can get one maritime bomber. Medium bombers are also good for naval stuff. They're like the next best. And then TAC bombers are not the greatest. Speaking of, as we look at Russia, we see the Germans decided to come back out over here to the Baltics. Good thing I actually forgot to move the Russian sub, because now the Russian sub's in the perfect position to fight this enemy cap ship. This is a battle cruiser. This is worth a good bit of money. We're going to go ahead and attack it with the sub. Fucking wow. 7 damage dealt, none received. They lost health just running over here. And that's the only thing I saw actually go by us. I don't think there's anything else. But just to be sure, I'm going to move the light cruiser forward first, because I've made that mistake. Even if I didn't see it, doesn't mean it's not there. Alright, so there is a heavy cruiser here as well. There was more. Okay. But we do have a attack bomber here that can go in and actually do some stuff here. Let's see. Let's try to use this tactical bomber to destroy the enemy heavy cruiser here. And we successfully destroyed the heavy cruiser. 526 national morale bonus for the Soviets. The Soviets, who, as we can see on the national morale, did lose some in that last turn resolution. Only like 1%, but getting it back would be good. What I need to do is keep America gaining some. They're like gaining, losing as they lose assets further in the east compared to what they have in the west, even though that looks wrong on the map. But maintaining 92 and hopefully getting that up. I'm just a little concerned with America because they are the lowest, but with how low Japan is, it shouldn't really matter. Hopefully, destroying German ships should continue to lower the German national morale, because now we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the Marat battleship, sail it forward. Even though the Germans outclass the Russian ships, it's fine. The Russian Navy's not important, but with that Navy, we can hurt the already endangered German Navy, just like that. And whew, what do you know? We just wiped out a heavy cruiser and a battleship. They'd be dumb to move this heavy cruiser any further forward with what they've discovered. So I'll go ahead and move the battleship back to where it was. I'm not going to chase them out there. They want to keep running up here, they can keep running up here. I'm not chasing them though. Looking at USSR diplomacy, there's only one more step needed to get Mongolia in the war. We have one chit from India, one chit from the Soviet Union right now in them. So I'm going to assign one more chit from the Soviet Union just to get that from a 10% chance to a 15% chance so it could happen faster. And I'll put the Soviet Union's other chit into what will probably be my next diplomatic target in Europe. There's not really anything in Asia. It's just Europe or the Americas. And that's actually going to end up being, assuming things go according to plan, Sweden. So that's because I think if I get Sweden leaning allies, they'll stop shipping stuff to Germany. I don't know if that's true, but either way, if they join me, they should definitely stop, theoretically. So I'll go ahead, I'll go ahead to Sweden and I'll assign one Soviet chit towards them, and that's where a lot of the UK chits are probably going to go after Finland has joined as well. So we can get the entire Nordic area under our control, because if that's under our control, and if they can have any naval ships, they can help us dominate the Baltic Sea, and generally we could put air power there that we could then use against the Germans and maybe make a hopping stone into Denmark later on. That's what I'm thinking. Otherwise, everything is just diplomatically like America's to buff up America's MPPs even more, which is not really necessary, or certain African things, colonies and such. I don't think I would go for Vichy France because I wouldn't want to have Vichy join the war because they're not going to have anything. They're just going to get steamrolled. I think they start out with like a corps or an army, like just one thing. So they would just get steamrolled immediately. They're surrounded on all sides now that Spain is joining the Axis. And I wouldn't want to make Portugal join the Allies unless Spain was ready to be invaded, because Spain would just, everyone would just, if they could, jump into Spain and then start killing Portugal. So getting Portugal is the last thing we want. Also, good thing I looked over here because I keep forgetting to move these British ships the hell out of here. So let's get the heavy cruiser there and let's go ahead and surround it with light cruisers right now. I'll put the heavy cruiser in port just so it can upgrade if it wants to, if it needs to. I don't know why the Norfolk's down here, honestly. But I can probably go ahead and get it in a northern port. Not that I usually like doing this, but the German ships are getting pretty messed up, to be honest. So I don't mind sailing around here and giving it maybe a chance to upgrade as well. It's just a heavy cruiser. Those are the most expensive things I'm willing to use as screens. You see, I always forget something. Doesn't matter if I think I looked everywhere. I always forget something. I know this tank's here, by the way. I just haven't had the money to really utilize it. Anyway, back to the Soviets. We have a lot of stuff to do. For starters, let's take the Baltic fighters and move them southwest towards where all these ships are, towards where all these men are, towards this tactical bomber that I'm not quite sure what I want to do with, to be honest. The tactical bomber can just, I don't know, actually. I want to move it towards the front and away from here. I don't have any maritime bombers that could really do much here, But the submarine is doing good enough work by itself, so I guess I'll move it south to Parnu for the time being. I can get maritime bombers later if I want, but this convoy shouldn't be a problem for exceptionally long. If I get Finland to join and then I put my attention to Sweden. I'm immediately going to shift into gear on the front here and get an offensive going. So we're going to start with the shock heavy tanks, which are going to go ahead and attack this 3rd Cavalry Division of Germany's, which is level 2 infantry upgrades. We dealt the advertised like 6 damage and made it retreat that far. Cav can retreat pretty far. I don't think anything else can retreat that far. Like infantry, I don't think can do that. Is that something that I can see? I don't think so. Huh. Well, they can go pretty far. Cavalry are not going to hold up against our tanks, which is good. We'll go take this army and attack the enemy cav up front with it since we're here. Yeah, it just retreated like crazy. God, I've only ever seen cav do that. I don't even know if anything else can do that. That's crazy. No one else is in position to actually attack from where they were. But we will go ahead and send the 1st mechanized forward towards Memel. We cannot actually get a decent attack in because these cavalry are extremely entrenched. Otherwise, we have a German army here, so we'll probably leave the mechanized up front to absorb anything from here. Looks like they had Memel ready for quite a bit here. Huh. This is on their side of the border. I guess they had an event at some point to annex Lithuanian Memel. I guess we might see that as an axis. I didn't see that pop up, which is a little confusing. Let's see, so we do have another tank that can move forward, however. We probably do want to have it move forward. We'll take the armored train, and we'll move that down the line to go stare off against the enemy. What is this? Wodrig Corps, interesting. There's a Hungarian army behind that to potentially worry about. I'm more concerned about this German army. I want to start getting really offensive now. The Germans have been pushing for so long, and now they're out in the open with no snow to protect them from my attacks, and also no snow to slow them down. Judging by the fact that everything on the front is missing some strength, they've been pushing as fast as they can without necessarily repairing, although they do have the upgrade advantage over me. However, I am still going to try to be offensive everywhere, because hopefully we're hitting them from so many different sides, plus the Italians, that we can hopefully make them run out of MPPs to keep going. So we're going to start with this mechanized. We're going to attack this enemy German corps and apparently trade equal blows. Not the most efficient, but something. We did not trade equal blows. We did worse than advertised. We're going to now swap that out and let these guys get behind. We do want to save the core on Cherkasy, so we're going to try to get it the fuck out as far as we can. We could operate it. I don't think we'll need to. So long as it stays over here by the fighter cover, it should be good. We'll move it up around here where I think it should be out of sight of the enemies so that we can move other forces to the front. And we have a nice pile up of troops just waiting to get to the front. So we'll move this rifle corps up to Cherkasy instead. If I had swapped, we'd maintain fortifications if there was any to begin with, but I didn't really think that far ahead. I just wanted to get this as far away as possible. We're going on the offensive anyway, so it really shouldn't matter. We have another rifle corps in the rear that I'm going to send all the way out here to the front on this road, trying to get as many things surrounding this Hungarian corps as possible. We're not going to have the air advantage. Even if I do try to bomb something, it's probably not going to work. So I'm going to try to mostly take advantage of the fact that the enemies are unentrenched instead and push with a giant human wall, just like the real Soviet Union would have. Now, the rain is going to slow this army down, so the army is just going to move forward as is. I don't know if the road would help, because I don't think it's on the road right now. I'm not sure. No, it's not. So we're going to move it forward up here along the river. And we are going to attack the Hungarian corps, which does not have any upgrades. We dealt 3 damage. We took 1 damage, just as advertised. I'm cool with that. Let's go ahead and attack with this new rifle corps on Cherkasy. 2 damage dealt, no damage taken, even better than advertised. Nice. All right. Now let's attack with the rifle corps we moved up in the south. 1 damage dealt, no damage taken, and the enemy moved, which is going to open it up to another strike. We'll move ahead this paratrooper. Still don't know what it's going to do. Enemy fighter cover in the area would make using this potentially really bad, to be honest, so we're not going to go out of our way to use it, that's for sure. We will probably move this corps from behind the river forward and go ahead and attack the enemy Hungarian corps again. It's down to only 1 HP. Okay. we will go ahead and simply reinforce what's at Odessa. That won't fix the morale, but it will keep the core alive. And hopefully with my offensive as I push in these other locations, we'll hopefully keep it alive, because we're not going to be able to run it away. Like, I'm also going to run away over here, this army at Kiev. And yes, I am going to run it. I don't need the fortifications from Kiev. And we're going to hope to reinforce these sooner or later. Mereteskov, I can't say that name, is supporting as many as he can. We have so many units here that we just really need more HQs more than anything. Glancing up north, that reminds me this HQ needs to be swapped into Riga, because I'm not keeping this thing at Riga. And since I swapped in, I can replace the general here. It has a 5-star rating. We're going to get one that has a 7-star rating. That's 90 MPPs. Expensive, but it will end up helping quite a bit. Smolensk has a 6-star. Maris have a 7. You have a 9. I could go ahead and replace the 6-star rating. We do have mostly 7s. I'd be amazed if we do end up getting any more HQs anytime soon. The one at Smolensk isn't of notable import yet, though, because this isn't a front. The enemies haven't pushed up to this line, and I don't know if I'm going to push from this line, at least anytime soon. It was a while ago that I mentioned that I realized that the Soviets, because they're non-cooperative, anyone that they take over or liberate specifically in this region, such as Poland specifically, would become... What the hell? Does this not count as occupied? Oh. Okay. But anyway, it was anything that... Wow, you can't free Poland. Sorry, I'm just distracted. I just realized you can't free Poland. All the Polish stuff becomes Axis, like... And Poland just vanishes. Well, that negates everything I was about to say then, because I was going to say, I realized if the UK beat the Russians to Warsaw, we could free Poland. And while we wouldn't be able to operate the Russians through Poland, we could use Poland. But I guess they make that impossible. You can't liberate Poland at all because it's permanently Axis. And this stuff is permanently Allies Soviets, the stuff that we annexed. Poland just doesn't exist at all. You can't get Poland back. Once they're gone, they're gone. And I don't know that you could ever make them live. Like I was saying, we are going to push a very solid human front line. No matter what the casualties are from this push, I believe we have the MPPs and overwhelming manpower, thanks to saving all the border forces, that we should be able to withstand anything and hurt them so badly that combined with all the other open fronts, we can make progress. I guess it doesn't really matter who gets to Berlin then, because we're not liberating anything along the way except for Yugoslavia, or at least what remains of it, because Croatia is going to permanently be there. All these other annexations are permanent. This is all that remains of Yugoslavia. If the Russians get here first, the Russians will own it. If the UK gets here first, the UK will once again own it. I don't think we have to worry about the Russians making it to Paris, but either way that wouldn't matter, because if they really made it that far, all that would be left is getting like Tokyo or something like that. Because Seoul is one of our victory objectives, I believe. Yeah, I don't know, whatever. We're going to take this core here, and we are going to push it forward to move my human wall forward, again, at any cost. We're going to take this core off this city, move that forward as well, and I'm not quite sure how I want to handle the attack over here. It's not looking too good against the Germans themselves. None of these cores look like they'll do, nor the core nor the mechanized, looks like they'll do the greatest against the... Ooh. Hungarians here. Looks like we can actually swap the mechanized back further. Has another action point to utilize. Okay, we'll move this injured mechanized back to Kherson so we can move the cavalry forward. However, the cavalry has an even worse chance to attack. We'll go and use the core because the core is worth less than the mechanized. So if it takes damage, it matters less. Didn't take any damage. That's fantastic. In that case, we can get the mechanized, this other one, up to the river here where it can form a defensive front. If we attack this army, we're getting fucked up. If we attack this core, we're getting fucked up. Again, I'm really unsure how I want to treat this one, because we can take a lot of extra damage than if we just sat here. They're not entrenched, neither are we. But we're attacking across a river, I think in both locations. Let's see. Does that look like a river? 4 minus 1 equals 3, 4 minus 1. Yeah, I think there's a river both times. So if we have them attack us, that's better. If they move around, that works. The forces of the Pripyat marshes and defending the fortifications over here are not really going to be needed where they are, because the Axis is not trying to push through this marsh. They're trying to push everywhere that is not the marsh, primarily the south, but their line is thinning out as they try to cover the French front, as they try to cover the north, the south, and Greece. Therefore, we need to start moving with these units. So I'm going to take this army out of its fortifications and move forward into the marsh. There's no fortifications here, but marshes are, I believe, more defended. Not against artillery, but yes against land forces. Artillery and air can actually make quick work of units that are in marshes. Not something we need to necessarily stress ourselves out about right now. We're going to take the special forces and move that forward into Kiev to take the position of the corps that just left it. I want to get my air a little more spread out on the front, so I'm going to fly the 1st Red Army fighters up here where they can hopefully help cover the frontier, because it's not really fully covered, unfortunately. I'm going to move the Western fighters up to where those fighters just were to cover the rest of this line, and then hopefully everything has some sort of fighter coverage. I do believe it does. We have the 3rd Army here that needs its reinforcements that ran back from Minsk. They did a good job surviving. Fuck, not 1 step back. We thrive on like 10 steps back. Look at how well that worked. We sucked them in with like a wave. It's absolutely fantastic how this is working out for us so far. We can definitely move further in through the forest and the marsh. How does forest work? Ironically, a forest protects you from artillery. That's dumb. In reality, I feel like a marsh should protect you from arty, but it doesn't. And a forest should not, because even if you entrench, there was the air burst from the trees that you had to worry about in a forest. It definitely would not protect you from artillery. I certainly wouldn't think so, but you know what? I'm not the creator of this game. We're going to move this corps forward out of his fortifications and move him to the west. I don't really know what the fuck to do with this engineer, because we're just on a complete offensive. I guess just in case we do get pushed back here at any point, I'll go ahead and set another left-facing fortification here. I don't think we'll ever be pushed back here, however, so I don't think that's anything we really need to worry about. We theoretically could start pushing west from here as well. If we did that, I mean, I'd probably want to get this guy having a better HQ sooner rather than later. However, I would like to put some more points into research. We have finished at least 1 research recently, and notably in that is production technology. If we upgrade that, which I definitely will spend 150 MPPs on, that will guarantee cheaper costs for upgrades and new units and repairs, which is all stuff that we are definitely going to need as this push continues and as we go onwards. It's so hard to split my research well enough. There's plenty more stuff I want to operate and reinforce, but there's plenty of research that I could do with getting that would help me. For now, let's go ahead and actually run this rifle corps past the front line at Orsha and see what they put at Minsk. Okay, so what they put at Minsk just appears to be a corps. The tanks have probably left, and that corps is probably not very entrenched. So we're going to move this 22nd Army forward towards Minsk. No, it has no entrenchment. However, we don't have much ability to hurt this German corps, unfortunately. I wish we did, but as you can see, we would lose 2 and would only kill 1. We'd have better odds if we sat here and waited before attacking. If we are going to move forward like this, we'd probably want to move the HQ at Smolensk up, is what we'd want to do. So that's what I'll do. I'll move the HQ up to Orsha, and we can start pushing from here. We want to go from all sides, so this would only reasonably be the next step. So let's push out from here. Let's see, you guys can push southwest up to the river. You can push across the river. Another corps following up here. Yeah, we're abandoning the fortifications and actually pushing forward through the mud towards the enemy in a massive human wall. I'll probably do the same here from Polotsk, I don't know how to say this, but I was going to actually move this army west, but I'm seeing I don't need to, because I could just push forward like completely right now. This AA will move up to keep the HQ in its defensive range. The Germans are spread out, and they're not expecting a massive human wave heading around this side. If we could surround Minsk, that's great. If we can get the Germans to operate things up here, things that are not ready to be up here, that would also be great. We have another corps that can move up through the Pripyat marshes for sure. I'm probably just going to stick most things near their nearest operational location, I guess would be a word. So I'll move... I'm afraid to move it up this way. I want to get on the road. I'll move this army northwest, because we have many more units in the rear that can operate to the front if we actually need to fill in any lines. Some are ready to operate, however, we're not going to operate them just yet, which reminds me, we don't have any upgrades, so we'll go ahead and we're going to keep flying these planes west, because I'm probably going to put the rest of my NPPs into more research, so the USSR can kind of try to keep up with the Germans, as they have already greatly fallen behind. I'll move this garrison away from the front line. Not 100% sure on where I'm going to put it yet, but it's definitely going to get moved. We'll use the armor train to attack the enemy corps in front of us. Dealt 2 damage. That's honestly a really, really nice result here. I'm going to try to swap this corps with the armor train. Can't believe that works, since the armor train can't even move in that direction, which now has us up on the front line staring down this corps, although our corps can't do very much about this. We do have some actual tanks nearby that I will go ahead and move forward a touch. Also, not the best odds, unfortunately. Pushing up here any further is gonna hurt, because they actually do have some entrenchments here, and their stuff here is in not so bad condition. This army could do with recovering. I don't know what the enemy German army here has. This is the last thing I want to rush up to, is this German army. I'll tell you that much. So assuming we play a little more defensive on this side, I'll take this tank and I'll move it over here as well. So that has 2 normal tanks on the front. Yes, 2 normal tanks. We have good kills, really good kills we can get against this Hungarian army. However, I'm more concerned with the German corps on the front. So we're going to go ahead and use this tank unit to attack. Dealt 3 damage, took no damage. Oh my god, okay. Nice. Let's go ahead and move the 5th tanks up further. Attack again. Dealt 1 damage. Didn't retreat any further from there, unfortunately. And you know what? Given what I'm seeing here, I'm actually going to take this 1st mechanized and I'm going to move it back a little bit. I don't know how much. Are you guys entrenched? Okay, you are. I'll move it back across the river again, because it's not going to go on the offensive down here. I do not want to move the light tanks up when it's going to be under such threat by these German armies and everything else that's around here. But this is still a pretty good push. We are dealing way more damage than we're taking when we're actually pushing, which is fantastic. And the Germans are probably just as stretched thin as we are, which is also fantastic for us. In the south, I'll take this anti-air. I'll move it north a touch so it can just protect right here. It's still protecting the HQ, because I want to move this corps up along the river here and have more infantry up by the front. This area is kind of clogged with our units, so there's little we can do in terms of movements here. I'll probably take the corps here at Kirsch and start moving it north as well, because I'm realizing I'm not going to need it here, because we're not getting pushed back over here. I'll try and play the odds and let them attack me from their location where we can defend along the river for sure. The north, where I planned on having my main offensive, is definitely looking thinner. More motorized and mechanized, but definitely thinner. So we might want to operate reinforcements over there sooner or later. Although it's going up against less, and it's going to have all this stuff from Orsha crashing down to help it. We actually have one of these notifications that this is undersupplied. It's not attached to an HQ. Yeah, we need more HQs here. We have way too many units to take care of right now. Although, again, HQs are a lot of money. A lot of money. We have, I think, all of our HQs forward deployed already. Definitely something I can try to prioritize is getting new HQs. I still need to upgrade the Smolensk one. We have so many higher star, like 7-star generals. We should probably be focusing on just utilizing exclusively those. We have the Stalingrad Corps, which can move up somewhere. I'm going to move it southwest towards this front, because this front's going to be a little more dangerous, and the more bodies I get over there right now, the better. This Moscow unit, he's just going to stay there for now. He'll get forward deployed eventually, just not quite yet. Got all these elite units ready. We have more units that still need reinforcements before I deploy them. Since we're on the offensive, I guess I'll go ahead and take this garrison and get it out of here. I'll just get it somewhere on the rails where it can operate. So I can move the armored train here, and then we're not going to need to defend this. We can get this garrison redeployed somewhere as well. However, I believe that that is everything that we are going to be doing for this turn. We have finished. There was a lot to do as the Soviets now that we're going on the offensive. We just need to allocate this extra 150 MPPs. I'm going to put that into spying and intelligence. So we have all these 4. I like these 4. These are very long-term techs. They slow you down in the short term, but very handy in the long run. And so, yeah, getting the USSR's tech tree moving again. Wow, we have some good opportunity to, even though it weakens us in terms of units, it will help us catch up ideally and all that good jazz. Yeah, that was a good turn. So next episode, we will go ahead and hit end turn because we're out of time for this one. I'm excited to see if I'm correct that we are stretching the Germans thin on this line, see how they react down south since they are being stretched thin, and even to the west, what they're going to do with this army. I'm excited to see what happens over here. By the way, I realize I'm an idiot. Yes, this carrier can get out. I've watched naval units cross past other naval units many times, but it should take damage if it tries. And if it does, it's not going to have any time to replenish its aircraft. And with my fleet here, it's probably not going to escape. It's probably not going to escape. In fact, I'll do myself a favor and actually move the American heavy cruiser, the Tuscaloosa, forward so it has a harder time running out. Yeah, I'll send both of the heavy cruisers just to make it harder for it to run out, because I forgot that it had the ability to do that until I had already ended the previous episode. But yes, before I go on any further, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.